So, another day, another video of me sitting behind my desk, speaking to a screen and speaking to a camera, right? Really grateful for you guys to be here. And as you can notice, there's a little bit of a difference in the setup. So, today I thought to, instead of, I like to use my phone just because it feels a lot more kind of handheldy and, a lot more authentic. The whole point of this channel is to be authentic. I feel like I could do that better with a phone. But I thought to just kind of switch things up a little bit and use my computer here, using my camera and this really nice microphone that I have. In this video, I just want to talk about being different, like just the concept of being different and, feeling like you don't belong anywhere. Because that's something that I've really, I guess, throughout my life had to wrestle with, and come to terms with. So, as always, I don't really have a script with these types of videos. It's kind of also an exercise for me to see if I can maintain coherent lines of thought over prolonged periods of time without any script, right? So, let's see how I do here. Hopefully, by the end of the video, I'm not talking about giraffes, pandas, or anything else, really. But yeah, being different. As I mentioned, this is something I've really had to deal with my entire life, basically. So just to go a little bit into kind of story time here. So I'm originally from Indonesia, right? However, I've only actually lived there for 2 years. So I am what you call a third culture kid, though I'm not a kid anymore. But yeah, like I grew up as a third culture kid, meaning that my parents moved around a lot when I was younger. So I lived in Indonesia, for example, for 2 years, then moved to Libya, stayed there for I think 3 years or so, 3 or 2 years, then moved to Malaysia for 8 years, moved to Qatar, stayed there for 5 years, and now I'm in the UK where I've been here for 4 years now, right? So I've kind of been moving around a lot in my life, and I've never actually really stayed in one place. Now, I'm not saying that as a way to complain or saying that, oh, woe is me, I move around too much. I am really grateful for the position I was, I guess, put in. I'm really grateful for my parents in that they had that opportunity. What the great thing about that, too, of moving around is that it really does expand your scope of your understanding of the world, right? Because you just move around to different countries all the time, and it's different, I feel like, than just kind of traveling to many countries, which obviously if you like to travel a lot and you've been to like 20 countries or something like that, right, 30 countries, you get exposed to all this culture, right? But the thing with that, the nature is you kind of stay in these areas for like a couple of days or weeks or even months max, right? It's something else completely to live in a place and really immerse yourself in the environment and culture for years on end, right? Which is something I did. And the great thing about that is, yeah, as I mentioned, it really does open up your view on life and, really just showing that everywhere we're basically all the same. We're all people, no matter where you're from. Cultures are different, obviously. The way people interact with each other are different, but at the end of the day, it really does help to break down those barriers of, viewing people as other people. Does that make sense? Like, wherever you are, it breaks down that barrier of seeing people as foreign, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. Anyways, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. But, so that's the positives of being able to move around. You get exposed, like, long-term, over prolonged periods of time, to different cultures and different people. Now, I guess more of like the negative side of it is because you move around a lot, you never really get to stay somewhere and really kind of settle, So that kind of really plays into not like the concept, the topic here of not fitting in. So, for example, I'm Indonesian. My parents are completely Indonesian as well, and my family, purebred Indonesian people. So my parents, they grew up in Indonesia, and until, as they got married, got together, my dad started working, and over the years, he had me and my siblings, and then that's when we started traveling, right? But they spent most of their time in Indonesia. However, me and my siblings, we spend our time growing up outside of Indonesia. And as I mentioned, I only stayed there for 2 years, which is the first 2 years of my life, mind you, where I was still basically an infant. So I do still remember some things from when I lived there, but not too much. But yeah, because I only lived there for such a short amount of period of time, um, when I speak to my family or just friends that are Indonesian, you know, it's very hard to fit in, um, because there's always that kind of barrier. You know, I love my family there, obviously, and I can speak to them and communicate with them, but there's always this kind of barrier. And that's the same as well with like Indonesian friends I make. Able to make lots of great friends there, but it's just, or from Indonesians from there that live there for a long time, but there's always that barrier that it's hard to describe. It's like a cultural barrier. So we're from the same place, but it's just hard. There's like this part of you that can't really connect with their viewpoints, or like their side of things, right? um, so yeah, that's one of like the struggles. And having grown up in international areas my entire life, that's something I've kind of been dealing with my entire life as well, naturally, as I grow up. So like through school, it also applies. I've always felt like I was different, and that also just applies more beyond like my nationality, obviously. So me, for example, personally, I consider myself to be a lot more introverted than I guess the average person. Like especially when I was young, man. Like, oh my god, I was so introverted and I was so shy, and I had horrible social anxiety, like genuinely, to the point where like I'd go to school, I'd have like severe heart, like just palpitations, just like my heart rate would be like super super high, and I'd find the only respite and break to be going to the bathroom and literally just hiding in the stalls, just trying to like calm myself down. Yeah, that's how bad it was. But I've always been kind of more of like an introverted person that's more likes to keep to myself. And again, not many people are like that. So naturally, as I was a kid, a teenager, hormones are kind of all over the place. You're a lot more self-conscious. That's something I really struggled with. It's like, why can't I be like other people? You know, um, why am I so different? Like, why can't I be like everyone else that can't speak to people properly, or you know, aren't as introverted as I was, right? I've had a lot of those thoughts growing up. Um, you know, so that obviously impacted like my life as a growing up as well. Um, so with those kind of like limiting beliefs in my head, when I made friendships, I was able to make lots of really great friends. But some people I talked to and became friends with, it's just there was something there that you know was missing on my end, and that like I just didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like I was always an outsider looking in from afar, you know. Um, and again, I went to the UK, so for university, basically. Went to university, and then I studied biomedical sciences, right? Which now I'm actually in the sales industry, which is something completely different, right? But in that degree, I my goals were very different to a lot of the people I was around. A lot of people really love to party, love to go out all the time. And again, me being like the introverted guy that I am, like to spend most of my time in my room making music, playing video games as well, like making music and just kind of being in my own little world. And again, from that, I felt like, why am I just so different? Why am I not like everyone else? Wrestled with that thought a lot. And that was even more I guess exacerbated when I decided I didn't even want to be a biomedical scientist anymore. So I went into the degree thinking I wanted to be a researcher, but then along the lines, I found that like business and entrepreneurship was really what I wanted to do. And again, not many people like have the same goals as that. So again, I just felt even more like just another thing that I was different in. Um, he's like, man, like I just don't feel. I feel like I don't fit anywhere. Um, so that literally, yeah, it's been my entire life I've been having this feeling of just not fitting in anywhere. But then recently, I went into work. I worked in sales as an account manager in car finance for car finance company, and there I really went through it in terms of the job because as I've been speaking this entire time, I'm a big introvert, right? And I'm going into a sales job where I'd be speaking on the phone for 5 hours a day, literally to customers, for 3 to 5 hours a day, as a freaking introvert, right? Like I spent my entire life liking to be by myself, being in my room, to an environment where I'm in the office full of people, full of noise, and speaking to people all the time as a daily job. Now you might be wondering why I even put myself through that. Um, Good question. I saw it as a way to develop my skills, my skill sets to where it is I want to go because I know where it is I want to go. It's just a matter of developing the skill sets, no matter how uncomfortable. But that's a topic for another day. Um, but through working here, I realized is like again, I'm just so different from everyone else. But this time, I didn't really feel like I. It was like a negative thing. I was like, I'm different here. Okay, and I was I. This was when I spent a lot of time self-reflecting, um, and I was thinking, it's like, why am I so different? Um, you know, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? And I just been really deeping it, really thinking about it. Like I consider myself to be a really ambitious guy. I really want to achieve things in life. A lot of things. And to do so, you have to be an exception. You have to be exceptional. Sorry, right? You have to be exceptional, and by definition, to be exceptional, you have to be the exception, right? And I thought about that. I was like, damn, that's so right. Like if I want to achieve exceptional things, I have to be the exception. And by definition, the exception is, someone like being an exception is someone who's not like everyone else, right? And that's when it really kind of clocked in with me, where I started to kind of own my differences a lot more and kind of be able to settle with them a lot more and be more confident in them, you know, uh, because there can only be one of you at the end of the day, right? If you were just like everyone else, you wouldn't be able to achieve extraordinary results. Now, like for example, think about Mozart. This is like a really example I was thinking of too. Is like Mozart. That guy, he was a weird guy. Like he made like a lot of fart jokes, poop jokes. Um, Even made a song called "Lich mich im Arsch." Probably butchered pronouncing that, but basically the whole he made this whole this song revolving around "Lick My Ass." That's literally what the title of it was called. Like he had like he was a weird guy, but he was undoubtedly a genius, right? The fact that he was weird and he was different than everyone else was what allowed him to be such a, um, like an exceptional person, doing like these amazing things. And another person I'm thinking of is this guy called Toby Fox. So if you know if you play video games, probably know Undertale. Toby Fox, he made that game completely by himself, did all the coding, did all the music, did everything literally by himself. And if you see videos of him online, he's quite the odd fellow. He's not like everyone else, which is his strength. That's what allowed him to to make such exceptional pieces of work. And then yeah, that's kind of when I clocked it that being an exception, being different is a strength. It's something that you have to really lean into and really embrace as a part of yourself. You know, of course, it's gonna feel a little bit. It does feel lonely sometimes. When you just feel like you're different from everyone else around you. But that's the price you gotta pay, man. That's the price you gotta pay. That's how I see it. And to all those of you watching that kind of feel somewhat similar, and in terms of just not fitting anywhere, just know that you're not alone. There are lots of people out there which are in the same shoes as you, and yeah, never truly alone. I feel like that's a really important thing to keep in mind, because that's also what I've been trying to keep in mind. Like even though I just feel like I don't belong anywhere, uh, I find a bit of solace knowing that there are other people out there feeling a bit of the same way. If that makes sense. Might be different from you for you, obviously, um, but like the whole concept is similar, because it can be really lonely sometimes, especially with like the work I'm doing now, what I really want to achieve. I spend most of my time indoors in my room, which I do enjoy, just a little bit more of like it matches more of my personality type. However, obviously it gets a bit lonely. Um, but again, kind of go circling back, that's just a price you have to pay. And yeah, I see it more as a price to pay, being different, and like the side effects of being different is more of a price to pay in order for you to get the goals that you want and go where it is you want to go, you know. So yeah, that's about it basically. I don't really know what else to say. That wraps everything up of what I wanted to say. Thanks for watching.